So, today we're going to talk about how do you know if you have flat feet? Now, as mums, we do a lot of standing, and whether it is at home with our kids or it is at work, it could be that you have a standing desk and you've been standing for long hours and yeah and or the nature of your job is such that you do a lot of standing. So when that happens, sometimes you would notice that you start to get a lot of pain and fatigue around your feet. You start to get a lot of muscle cramps. Now these symptoms can be due to other things as well, but because we're addressing flat feet here, so let's talk about how these symptoms relate to your flat feet. Now, what happens is with your flat feet come all these aches and pains. But then, how do you know if you have flat feet? So, let's address that in this video. Now, before we jump into the topic for today, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Swati. I'm an executive mom power coach. I help moms of younger kids who work in high stress executive jobs manage the aches and pains that they come across in their motherhood journey. Now, this could be anything from spinal, that is back and neck pain, to joint pain, and that includes feet pain, so or foot pain. And now, this could be during your pregnancy, during childbirth, or the later years when your kids are younger. And usually, moms are busy people, right? So we don't have a chunk of time to take out to address these aches and pains or discomforts that we face on an everyday basis. Now, maybe you're one of those moms who has Googled their problem or back pain, neck pain, or joint pain till 2 a.m. in the morning. But maybe you found some solutions as well. But those solutions have not served you in the long term. Now, this is where I come in with simple exercises, easy lifestyle changes, tips and hacks, etc., that you can work into your existing daily schedule. And you don't have to take out a chunk of time for it. All right, so let's go back to the topic for today. How do you know if you have flat feet? Now, basically, our feet are the foundation of our body. That's what is touching the floor when you're standing, when you're sitting. If your feet are not stable, there is an effect, a cumulative effect that goes up into your obviously in your feet and ankle, but up your knees and hip. And you can even have problems with your lower back and then subsequently in your spine if your feet are not positioned properly. With flat feet, okay, let's go back to when we are babies. When babies are born, they have absolutely flat feet. They don't have the arches. Now, as the babies grow and they start to crawl, and when they start to walk on their feet, the pressure of the body on the feet is the stimulus because of which these arches start to form. Now, these arches are usually formed by the age of 6, give and take 1 2 odd years, depends on the kid as well. And when these kids reach 6 plus age, they start to have these arches. And because the kids bones are still quite soft and malleable and they are in the formative years, basically they are molding to the shape that they would be in adulthood, these arches are constantly forming during those years. However, as adults, our arches have already formed. So it can happen that you have an arch, had an arch all your life in your foot, but now you've started to notice that your feet are flatter. So how do you know? How can you test? So a simple thing is when you're standing on both feet. So you can stand with your feet shoulder width apart and then have a look on the inner part of your foot. Now, if you notice that the inner edge of your foot is completely flat on the ground, you could ask somebody else to have a look for you. So if this is the inner edge of my foot and I'm standing on the ground, you run a finger along, you will see that there is a little bit of a gap, because when we have an arch, there's like a little bit of a gap here. Just one sec, some tech difficulty here. So you will notice that you have some sort of a arching or a gap towards the middle of that foot here. So what happens is, if you do not have that arch or gap towards the middle of that inner edge of the foot, that means you have flat feet. So either you have had those flat feet all the while, or if, as I said in the beginning of the video, you're a mom, you've been standing for long hours, or anybody who's been standing for long hours due to professional or personal reasons, um, like for example teachers, they stand for a long time, right? And people who use standing desks for a very long time, which you should not do, you should keep varying your position posture. But anyway, so if you do that, the arches can actually get flattened. These are known as fallen arches. But anyhow, this is how you will detect if you have fallen or flat arches or not. A fun exercise, a fun thing that we used to do as kids was, when you come out of the shower, your feet are wet. When you walk on the floor, look at the impression of of your foot on the floor. So if if the floor is dry, you can actually see that there is an arch on the inner side. So basically, the inner edge of the foot does not leave an impression on the floor. However, this is not a scientific thing, but this is just a fun activity that you could do, especially if you have kids whom you suspect have flat feet. So you can try this out with the kids. So basically, there are different kinds of flat feet, like flexible, rigid, etc. But I'm not going into that because that's beyond the scope of this video. Just looking at my notes here. So yeah, so uh, usually it's quite a common condition. And another test you can do is, if you had flat feet for a while, turn your shoes over, some shoes that you wear all the time or your house slippers. If you turn them over and you look at the sole of the foot, you will notice that the inner part of the sole of the shoe is more worn out than the outer side, because you're bearing more weight on the inner side, so it'll be more worn out. But this will only be seen in shoes that you've worn for a few months or regularly every day. The other thing you can do is yeah, the water test that I told you about. Just one second. Yeah, so if you have kids who keep falling all the time, I mean, there are lots of reasons why kids fall, right? Mine fall just because they're not looking where they're going, but there are lots of reasons. So if you have kids and you suspect that they have flat feet, you could that is one of the reasons you could suspect that they have a flat feet, sorry. So anyway, going back to the adult one, now what can you do about it? You can go to your physical therapist, and they can teach you some stretches, they can give you some exercises to do for your flat feet. Or they're quite easy, actually, they're quite simple ones that you can do on an everyday basis. Now, because adult feet are quite rigid, uh, I don't expect there to be a lot of changes with these exercises, but at least if there are some muscular imbalances because of the flat feet, you can address that. And you can address any pain or calf cramps or leg cramps that you have because of the flat feet. The long term management will be if you get orthotics or arches put inside your shoes. And an orthotist will be able to advise you about this. And I do not have the knowledge to give you the full details, but orthotics or insoles that you can put into your shoes are something that you can consider if you suspect that you have flat feet. The other side of the spectrum is if you have arches that are too high. But that is not something that happens with the majority of the population. Majority of the people will have a flatter feet. Alrighty, so I hope that gave you a bit of insight into flat feet, also known as pronated feet. And if you are looking for any simple solutions to manage your joint pain, your heel pain, even your foot pain, or your spinal neck and back pain, I have a free community where I do free trainings every month, and I have a bit of information in there that could be helpful for you. You can join my community. I will leave a link in the description of this video. If you're watching me on Instagram, the link is in my bio. Alrighty, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below the video, and I'll be happy